Okay, so what's good? Today we're going to be talking about drain phase and how a lot of people mess this up, and it's actually incredibly important to your damage. There are a lot of different things that you're going to need in order to have a good drain phase, and I'm going to go over all of that. So first things first, you're going to need to read the talents. The way this works, so Soul Siphon says, so first off, Drain Soul is a dot. Soul Siphon says that Drain Soul is going to go up by an additional 6% for each dot that you have up on the target, up to 18%. So one thing about that is it's actually not hard to get those 3 dots. It doesn't need to be 3 individual dots. This thing right here, Shadow's Embrace, and just your one other dot. Even just having 3 Shadow Embrace is already qualifying for the maximum of 18%. So yeah, another thing about Drain Soul is that it's going to be doing 4 times as much damage, sub 25%. That's just something you're going to read on the tooltip though. Oh, that's another thing. So it's also going to refresh your corruption at the beginning of the cast. So in addition to a channel, the beginning of this channel holding all of the buffs for your Drain Soul, it's also going to hold them for the corruption that it's refreshing. So it's super important that you're managing your trinkets and your cloak and all sorts of other different buffs, because that's what your corruption is going to have as well. But yeah, let's get into specific things that are going to help your drain phase. I have an entire list. So this isn't supposed to be perfect. This isn't like a direct 20% damage increase. And this isn't the whole list, but this is kind of a rough estimate of what I'm thinking of whenever I'm in drain phase. So you have Eradication, PI, your trinket. You're going to be using Dying Curse for a while, but you have to think of this as like a straight 20% damage increase, because usually in around tier 7 Bis, you're looking at, I think it was like 3,200 spell power. So you got to think that another 800, that's basically, 20% more spell power, so 20% more damage. Generally, you don't have Lust in Execute, so this is kind of, you're not really watching for this a lot of the time. But the biggest buff that you could possibly actually get is the Haunt and Shadow Embrace synergy. So whenever you haunt, it's going to put up Shadow Embrace, and it's going to continue keeping those 3 stacks of Shadow Embrace. In addition, Haunt is going to increase your Drain Soul by 23%. So both of these together is 38% of your damage. So you absolutely cannot lose your Haunt or 3 Shadow Embrace while you're doing Drain Soul. The other buffs are all pretty close. So like Tricks is pretty close. This is just 10% haste. So you're definitely going to want to interrupt your channels in order to refresh your corruption as well as your Drain Soul with these buffs. It's just going to be a straight DPS increase. The entire point is to maintain unstable affliction for as long as you can in the drain phase, and at the same time, never ever lose your Haunt or 3 Shadow Embrace. The only time that you let that drop is if the boss is literally going to die in 1 tick, and you're not even going to get a Haunt up. You're not even going to get, like, you don't have time to get a Haunt up. You don't have time to do a Haunt and another drain tick. So you're just, at that point, you just accept that this last drain tick is going to be substantially lower. So yeah, here's all the buffs that I can think of that you're generally going to have to be watching for in your drain phase. Okay, so now we're going to look into exactly how I would do drain phase and how I did it and how I played around re-channeling and interrupting my channel each time. So here is my patchwork kill. So as you can see, the boss's percent is right here. This Tricks is actually ending, so that's not ideal at all. In this scenario, my rogue actually tricks me late. So basically there's no way that I'm going to have another Tricks during my execute. That being said, execute starts now. I have my last unstable affliction. I actually think I clip it here. If not, I was very close. You generally don't want to clip, but I knew that I was just about to hit 25%. I knew that my dying curse was coming up soon. So I knew that right after this UA, I would just haste pot and fucking go. So that's exactly what happens. We hit 23%. Ideally, you also get your power infusion in execute. That's just the best time to use it. As you can see here, though, I actually re-channel here. As soon as I get that, so just watch these ticks. That's what's going to teach you the most. As soon as I get my, I have my haste pot, my dying curse that proc first. I immediately start channeling, and then after that, I get the power infusion. So that means that this power infusion is not applying to my corruption. It's not applying to my haunt that I have currently channeled on the boss. So after this tick, I'm going to re-channel it, which I did. And this is very, very ideal. This scenario is going to lead you a ton of damage. Like, you have to be re-channeling this stuff, or else it's not going to apply to your biggest damage dealing spells. Like, corruption does what, 25-30%? Drainsoul does like 15%. You have to be making sure that you're actually applying your trinkets and your whatnot to your biggest damage dealers. So anyway, let's keep going. I hold this drain for a while just because it's such a big one. And I even reapply haunt a little early so that I can get this drain again with this trinket and with these. So I do that. Haunt lands. One thing about the haunt and the 3 shadow embrace, if that were to drop, again, you have to think back to the image that I just showed you. That's 38% that your drain is going to 38% damage that your drain is either going to lack if you miss it, or is in addition to your damage if you keep it up, which you need to. So anyway, let's continue. At this point, if I was quick enough, maybe I could have done my gloves like on this tick and gotten a refresh here, but I didn't notice it in time, and I knew that I was holding this dying curse at this point, so I didn't want to use my gloves just yet. I wanted to just hold what I had. And then I see that towards the end of this drain, usually you can't hold a drain this far. Usually you have to refresh some dots. At this point, I see that a lot of my stuff is kind of falling off, but I also just got a fresh eradication. My Elu is about to fall off, so I definitely need to haunt or do something at this point. So I go for the unstable affliction. I'm pretty sure I clipped that again, but again, not too big of a deal. I actually managed to get the gloves, PI, eradication. I managed to get all of this in, as well as the last little bit of haste pot in this drain. But I'm only able to hold it for a tick because, again, my haunt is going to fall off. So again, I go for the drain, get a decent one, not as big as the last one. And you can actually see, if you're looking at the different cast times of all these spells, they change. You know, it's 10-20%. It's huge. So the ticks are going to come out much faster, and you're able to kind of squeeze in extra ticks of drain soul. See, I kind of wanted to show you towards the end there's different buffs that I start letting fall off, because I know that the boss is literally like 5 seconds from dying, right? So at this point, I'm holding a big drain because I know that I had a bunch of haste procs, I had some other stuff going, and I still have a little bit of time on my haunt, so I'm just holding, and finally I go for another haunt just for the last little bit. If I was smart, I would have redone my drain after this power infusion comes out, but I actually didn't notice it. I was just kind of holding it. I go for it at the end here, at the last 0.5% of health, but I didn't end up even getting that last tick, so didn't even this last PI didn't even help me because it was just way too late. But yeah, that's just going through exactly how I do drain phase, all the different procs and stuff that you need to be looking out for. When it comes to shadow trancing during drain, I try to use it when it's setting myself up for, like, let's say I'm going to life tap again, or let's say that I'm going to put up another dot. I try not to shadow trance too much, especially if my drain has a ton of haste, if my drain has a ton of spell power behind it. I'm definitely not going to waste it on a shadow trance. I'm just going to hold that super buffed drain soul. Yeah, I think that's it. So kind of a long-winded way of pointing out that drain phase is very particular and exactly how I go about doing it. And it's not just drain soul that it's affecting, it's also affecting your corruption. But yeah, it's super important. You need to be tracking all these things. I'll have a link in the I'll have names of add-ons and stuff in the description that you're going to want. I would definitely have something tracking all these different buffs like tricks, PI, your racial, your trinkets, your cloak here, your gloves. I would have something tracking absolutely all of that. And then most importantly is the tick. You need some kind of cast bar that shows ticking, and that's going to be what I use is QUARTZ. So yeah, that's what I would do. But yeah, thanks for watching. If you guys have any more drain soul questions, feel free to ask. I answer just about every comment. So yeah, thanks, and have a